Hey everybody, Mr. Schreiber here, and today's lesson is going to be the second part of probability, and it's all about being able to estimate the number of times an event will occur once you figure out the probability. It's not that tough, so let's get right into it. So we have problems here. I'm going to go over them, and just make sure that if you're not getting this, if it's a little confusing, make sure to join me on my conference, and we'll go over it. So it says Meredith performed an experiment in which she tossed a coin multiple times. The results of her experiment are shown below. So normally you would get 50-50, right? 50% heads, 50% tails. That's not what happened here. There were 30 heads and then there was 42 tails. Now, if I asked you guys from the last lesson, what's the experimental probability? You would just add these together and then divide, whether it's heads or tails, divided by the total number of attempts. But this question is going to be a little bit different. It's going to say that based on the experiment above, predict the number of times the coin will land on heads if she performs the experiment a total of 288 times. So I'm going to underline this as well. Based on the experiment. So what we have to do to solve this is we have to find the experimental probability first. In most of your problems today, you're going to have to find the experimental probability first, which hopefully you guys remember from last week. Experimental probability. So we're trying to find heads. So the experimental probability is you got heads 30 times out of a total of 30 plus 42 is 72. So if you want, you can change this to a decimal, or you can put it in simplest form. So the question is, if you get it 30 out of 72 times, how many times out of 288? Now, there's a number of ways you can do this, but I'm going to show you what I think is the fastest way. And the fastest way is to get the decimal. So if you have a calculator, we can divide this. So 30 divided by 72 is going to give you 30 divided by 72. It's going to give you this crazy decimal. .416 repeating. That means that this is the decimal version of what you would get if you were to find the number of times it lands on heads. It lands about 42% of the time. The question is, how many times would you expect to get a heads if you did this 288 times? Not 72, 288 times. So all you have to do, this is the entire lesson, is you have to take this number, this is the percentage as a decimal, and we just multiply that by 288. That's it, because if this is the percentage, 0.416 repeating of this will give you how many times you would estimate. So what I like to do is, if you guys can see my super awesome number, I just take that number, and instead of typing it again, I just keep that number and I just multiply it. Let's see if I can show you. Ready? Times 288. Press enter, and guys, you have your answer, which is 120 times. You would expect to get a heads 120 times out of a total of 288 times. That is the easiest way I think that you can go about solving this. There is another way that I can show you. You could write a proportion. This is the total, right? The total number of times you did it. This is 288 times. Oops. Let's erase this. So, come on, Mr. Schreiber. Get it together. So if you get 30 out of 72, how many times out of 288? And you can cross multiply here. You can do that. That's fine. But I think this is the easiest way. Find what the decimal is. The decimal is the percentage. And just multiply it by the total. And that's going to tell you the answer. The answer is 120 times. Okay. Now, let's take on another one that's very similar. It says Olivia K. spins the spinner 300 times. How many times would you expect to get the following? Now, what this means here, this looks a little confusing. That just means the probability of getting green. The probability of getting green. So let's put that in green. Why not? So what is the probability of getting green? Well, the probability of getting green is there's 2, and they're all equal sides. This is important. 8 equal parts. It is 2 out of a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they're all equal, so it's 2 out of 8, which is equal to 1/4. So if I know it's 1/4, you should get green about 1/4 of the time. How many times would you get out of 300? Well, you could take 1/4 in your calculator and multiply it by 3. That's going to give you the right answer. Or you can do this. You can just change this 1/4 to a decimal. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. And we can just multiply that by 300. And that's going to give you your answer. Some of you guys can maybe even do this mentally. 0.25 times 300 is going to give you 75. The answer is 75 times. Again, all we're doing is we're finding the probability and we're multiplying it by the total number of spins. Let's take a look at the next one. It says, what's the probability of getting red? Well, we do the same thing. What's the probability of getting red? It would be 1, 2, 3, 3 out of a total of 8. So the probability is 3 out of 8. Now, this is already in simplest form. So what is 3/8 of 300? And we can change that to a decimal. Or if you want to keep this, if you have a calculator on, you can do this. 3 divided by 8 is 0.375. Find the decimal, just multiply it by 300. This is actually a really important skill that you use. I've used it in my daily life whenever I'm trying to find percentages of something. And the answer here is 112.5. We can change that to 113. We're going to round that times. Okay, we have 2 more. So here it says, what's the probability of spinning a blue or a yellow? Blue or a yellow. So if you were a winner, if you won, if you got a blue or a yellow, the probability of getting a blue or a yellow is 1, 2, 3. Again, that's the same thing, isn't it? That's going to be the same thing as getting red. 3/8 of 300, which you already know is 113 times. And last but not least is, what does this mean? The probability of not blue. Not blue. Can you tell me what is the probability of not getting a blue? Think about that right now. What's the probability right now of not getting a blue? Well, how many options that are here that are not blue? Well, there's 1, there's green, red, and yellow. Those are not blue. So there's 1, look at my cursor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 opportunities out of 8 that give you not blue. So we can change that to 3 out of 4. And what is 3/4 of 300? Again, what I would do is I would just change this to a decimal, which is 75 or 0.75, and just multiply that by 300. 0.75 times 300. And I'm a big fan, if you're starting to catch on right now, I'm a huge fan of you stopping the video, trying these out on your own, and then you can fast forward to see if you got the same answer as me. Okay, let's try some more. Okay, it says Brady is conducting an experiment using the spinner with 4 different colors: red, orange, blue, and green. He spun the spinner 40 times and recorded the data below. So we have a 6, a 12, a 4, and 18. This is based on the data in the table. If Brady spins the spinner 240 times, he predicts the spinner will land on red roughly how many times? Well, how do you find the probability of red? Well, I know red is 6. You got it 6 out of a total of how many times? Well, if you add all these together, we're going to find the experimental probability, because it doesn't really give us the theoretical. It doesn't give us the theoretical probability, but we can find the experimental by saying that it's 6 out of a total of, and when you add all these up, add them all up, it gives you 40. In fact, it also tells you right here, 6 out of 40. And we're just going to change that to divide by 2. We're going to put this in simplest form. You actually don't even have to do this if you don't want to. 3 out of 20. Let's find the decimal of that. 3 divided by 20 gives you 15%. And it says that we're going to do this 240 times. So what is 15% of 240? All we have to do is 0.15 and multiply by 240, which gives you 36. 36, so we can just type it in there. Okay, well, this question is a little bit tougher. He says he also predicts the spinner will land on green roughly, and just you don't want to find green yet, because read the question very carefully. It says he also predicts the spinner will land on green roughly blank more times than it will land on red. So it doesn't say to find the green probability, even though you have to. You have to find how many more times will it be green than red. So how do we solve that? Well, let's first probability of getting green. Green would be, so probability of getting green is 18 over a total of 40. And again, I can put this in simplest form. You can, but really you don't have to. Just take 18 divided by 40. And when you do that, you're going to get 0.45. That means 45% of the time you're going to get green. So let's just multiply. And then we're doing this 240 times. And that gives you the answer of 108 times. But 108 is not the answer. 108 is not the answer because it doesn't tell us, it doesn't say you need to find the probability of green. It says he predicts the spinner will land on green roughly how many more times than it will be on red. So if 108 times is the number of times you'll get green, and red is 36 times, how many more times would you expect to get green? Let's just take 108 and subtract it from the number of times you get red, and that is going to be telling you how many more times it will land on red. I'm sorry, how many more times it will land on green than red. So let's just subtract. And the answer is 72. 36 and 72. That's it. Let's take on one more. It says Stacy performed an experiment in which she rolled a 6-sided die multiple times. The results are shown below. If you remember, this is a similar type problem that we did last week. The difference is the question. It says, based on the results above, predict the number of times a 1 would be rolled if Stacy performs the experiment a total of 600 times. So first, we have to find the probability of getting a 1. And we know a 1 is 20. 20 times out of how many? Well, how do we know this? 20 times out of how many rolls? Let's find out how many total rolls it was. Let's add all these together. And you can do it with me right now. And I have my cell phone, which I should have grabbed my actual calculator. I don't really like the cell phone calculator, but I'm going to try to add all these up. Not make a mistake. And when you add them all up, you get 200. So you got 120 out of 200 times, which is equal to 1/10. Okay. Again, this is not our answer. It doesn't say the probability of rolling a 1. It says the probability of rolling a 1 if you do it 600 times. So 1/10 is the same as 0.1. So if you do it 600 times, just take that decimal. And again, all we're doing is we're finding the probability as a decimal, and we're multiplying it by 600, and that gives you the answer 60 times. To be expected to get it about 60 times. The last problem is a little bit different. I just wanted to show you it so you guys could be able to kind of understand compound events. It's going to help you guys out for the next lesson. It says a game requires each player to spin a spinner with 4 equal sides and roll a die number 1 through 6. The sections on the spinner are colored red, blue, green, or yellow. And the table below shows, this is going to be important, all the outcomes of one spin and one roll. Okay, so this can be a little confusing, but I want you guys to focus on the red box. All the possible outcomes of rolling a dice spinner. I want you just to focus on this. This just kind of tells you these are the number of options for rolling a dice, and this is the number of options for spinning a spinner. And it says, what is the probability of landing on green or yellow and rolling an even number? So green or yellow. It doesn't have to be green and yellow. It could be green or it could be yellow. So what we're going to do is we're going to circle anytime we have a green and we have an even number. Let's start with that. Here's a green and an even number. There's one. There's another. There's an even number. There's green and even numbers as well. And what about yellow? Well, yellow could be a 2, yellow and a 4, and a yellow and a 6. Let's take a look again. Is there any other combinations you see here that are green or yellow and an even number? I don't see any. So guys, what's the probability? The probability is, well, how many did we get that are green or yellow and an even number? And the answer to that would be there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's 6 out of how many? How many total are here? How many total possible combinations? The number of total possible combinations always goes on bottom. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 by 6 gives you 24. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I want you always to put this in simplest form, and we can divide both of these by 6. The answer is 1/4, or you can make that this is the correct answer, or we can make this into a decimal. I'm sorry, a percentage. All of these are correct answers. Okay, guys, that's it. Make sure you guys complete your probability checkout problems, number 2. And I want you to reach out to me with any questions that you have. Make sure you join me in the conference. I may make another bonus opportunity for people. I really appreciate those people who saw me last week. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys soon. Guess my cat is like, now you can hear him meowing, but he's actually moving the screen. We're gonna bring him in here. This is the cat. He just wants to be held. This is Harry. Hi, Harry. Can you say goodbye to the students? Say goodbye.